Hi there, welcome to another Wine Steward video, and we have the appropriate props ready. This bottle of sparkling wine, as the finish attests, and a glass of it. Why are these props occurring first? Because first and foremost, we want to tell you that we still have seats left for our June 8th sparkling wine event. I should more accurately call it our champagne and sparkling wine event. We know, don't we, class, that not all sparkling wines are champagne, but all champagne is sparkling wine. Here is a beautiful sparkling wine that's not champagne that might happen at that event. But it is certainly already happening, well, obviously right here, but also on our wine bar menu of this week. So this is being poured this week. What is this? This is from Cava, Spain. Yes, Cava is a wine location, a appellation of wine, even though there's a weird thing about Cava that we can do. Maybe we'll get into it at this thing that's coming up, this thing on June 8th. Yes, I'm talking about two different things, aren't I? One wine might apply to two different things in that this is already available on our wine bar menu and downstairs. You can buy some, take it home, enjoy. But we might go into a little more depth of talking about it on June 8th, Sunday, June 8th at 4:30 p.m. for 28 of you, 28 and only 28. Now, I can qualify that by saying, or should expand on that, I don't know what we're doing. We're just gonna add to that by saying that if we have enough enthusiastic signups, maybe 4 days before, and realize more people will want to attend that event, I'll add another bottle of every wine and we can accommodate more like 38 or 40 of you. So just know that we would love to have a lot of you bubble lovers on June 8th at 4:30 p.m. It's a Sunday, so we can start this earlier. We'll go about 2 hours and 15 minutes at the most to show 6 wines from Champagne and 6 sparkling wines from elsewhere. How about that? At least 12 bubbles. And if you're like me, you might have started out thinking all bubblies were kind of like the same. You couldn't really identify much difference. That's because you were having one sparkling wine at a time. You didn't usually have the opportunity to do what we're going to do on June 8th and try one thing after another, and you're going to realize how different sparkling wines can be from each other. Back to this beauty. This could be a great wine for the event. It might double, it might, well, it is on our wine bar menu, but it might happen at the event because there's so many things to talk about with one sparkling wine. We could talk about the fact that not all sparkling wine comes from Champagne. Boom. This one comes from Cava, Spain, within the Penedès. This is you go east of Barcelona and you're swimming, but west of Barcelona and you're in Cava country, Penedès. We could talk about the fact that it's a Blanc et Blanc. That's a Champagne and sparkling wine term, right? Blanc et Blanc. We could talk about the fact that this is not a Brut, but a Brut Nature. What the hell does that mean? Let's get into that a little. We're not going to get boring at this event, but I think why not edify a little? Why not taste while we get a little more education on wine? We could talk about the fact that this is a Gran Reserva. What's the difference between a Cava Gran Reserva and good old grocery store Cava? We'll get into it. Anything else to talk about? It doesn't say it here, but I can tell you that it does say it back here. This is vintage Cava. You don't see that very often either. So we're going to talk about vintage, Gran Reserva. We promise not to talk too much as I am right now, but we do promise to pour really good sparkling wine at the upcoming sparkling wine and champagne event, or the other way around, and pour really good stuff and learn something. I'll learn something too. You know why I will? Because whereas I've chosen all these wines, tasted them before, I will never have had them in this particular sequence. I will never have had them all in one room. And so that's, for me, that's pretty cool. Context is what we get to enjoy. Besides delicious product, this, with respect to that, is going to be a fun thing to do that night. Enough about that. Our wine bar menu features a beautiful white flight that takes you all over the place, as usual. Sometimes we have a theme, like all wines, all French whites, all Italian whites, or 5 wines made of Viognier. This time, we're just going to go all over the place. We're a little more thematic with the reds. We are going to do California reds, but boil it down to a certain style. California Rhone style reds. In other words, inspired by the Rhone Valley of France, where they grow what? Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and so on. There's some other players there too. I need a sip. Ooh, that's nice. The Rhone style reds are actually more precisely located from the Central Coast, which might sound like a little place. It's actually a pretty darn big place. We're gonna have two wines from the northernmost appellation of the Central Coast region and three wines from the southernmost appellation, sub-AVA appellation, whatever you want, of the Central Coast. What are they, class? Anybody? The southernmost is Santa Barbara County. We just did a Sideways Country event. That's Santa Barbara County. Boom. So we're gonna have three wines from there, all made with Rhone varieties. Here's one, Stoltman Vineyards, beautiful Syrah. Really lovely stuff. Stoltman is back. We love to represent this particular producer for posterity's sake, friendship's sake. Hello, Pete, how are you? And also because the juice is damn good. And I believe this is year in, year out, my absolute favorite wine from Stoltman for the money. This Syrah, their estate Syrah, just is so beautiful. It doesn't have any rough edges anywhere. It doesn't go too big, it doesn't go too light. It is just endearingly beautiful Syrah from our friends at Stoltman. Hello there, welcome. That's Leslie coming in. And another one from Santa Barbara County. We're gonna stay down there and tell you about quickly this Senso. You don't hear about Senso very often. Maybe you see it on the list of ingredients of a Chateauneuf de Pape or some other Rhone red, but it is hardly ever treated as a what we call a varietal, where it's the highlight grape of a blend. Yes, there's a tiny bit of Grenache, a dribble of Syrah in this, but nearly all of this blend is comprised of Senso. And this is a beautiful wine that starts off the flight. This is from Marjoram, our friends who make M5, which is also available downstairs. But we want to feature something a little more unique this time, this beautiful Senso from Marjoram in Santa Barbara County. That's going to happen. Hey, let's see. We have one more from down there. Let's find it. Here we go, back to Stoltman. This label is probably unfamiliar to you, but the wine might not be. If you've been following Stoltman for a while and haunting the wine steward for even longer than a while, you'll be used to the term Stoltman La Quadrilla. This is a wine that's grown specifically in a part of the vineyard where the crew, La Quadrilla, gets to call the shots on the blending, on the farming, and they, in fact, benefits monetarily by the selling of this particular wine. So this crew, which Stoltman keeps year-round, they don't have to go back to Mexico. They don't have to migrate once a year. Stoltman make sure they stay busy, have solid jobs all year long. Kava burp, need some more. And they are also thanking their crew with the saying, hey, guys, go for it. And guys and gals, by the way, go for it. Make a wine for yourselves that you will profit by and on your own terms as far as farming and blending. So here is, in fact, a Rhone-based wine. There's a Grenache Syrah Mourvedre in there. There's one little infiltrator of Sangiovese infiltration happening here, but we forgive it because we've always loved La Quadrilla from Stoltman. It's back, and yet it has a different label every year. So for the retail shelf, it's a little inconvenient because people who are looking for it might not recognize it because they saw the last year's label, and but it's fun to design. Speaking of design, let's now finally come to this. Well, I won't. There's one more wine to tell you about. We have a very dear friendship. We're friends in the form of Tony and Jen and Madison Delyaman. They grow beautiful Syrah and Mourvedre about a mile east of where I live in the Livermore Valley, and they make this, among other things. This is a Syrah from their own vineyard. It's estate. They make the wine on their own property, so it's truly estate. It's domain, you could say, and it's a gorgeous Livermore Valley Syrah that finishes the flight. Tony and Jen and Madison worked on this beautiful wine. That's also part of the Central Coast flight. I just identified the northernmost wine region in the Central Coast. Did you know that the Livermore Valley appellation is indeed within the Central Coast? Yeah, we're at the very tippy top of it, whereas Santa Barbara County is at the bottom end of it. And what do you have in between? You have Paso Robles, you have Monterey County, you have Santa Cruz Mountains, and all that stuff. That's all Central Coast. Let's show you one more wine from the Central Coast that's very near and dear to me. I'm very pleased with how this came out this year. This is perhaps our 6th iteration of a rather over-designed label. We were blaming Stoltman on like making a different label every year. Well, we don't make a different label every year, but we certainly did over-design in a rather ancient-looking way. This is meant to remember the more ancient-looking labels from the south of France, more specifically the Rhone Valley of France. This is our own Domaine de PdV. PdV is how you pronounce it, not PdV. You can say PdV if you want, it's easier and it makes more sense, but PdV has apparently, I've been told by people who speak French fluently, has not so positive connotations, but I was advocating more life here. So if you say plus de vie, it means more life. This comes from Livermore, which I would think we could remarket as live more, in other words, more life, for more people to love the name of our appellation. But forget all that. This is a nearly 100% Livermore Valley grape wine. It's our baby. It's sold only here at the store. We did 31 cases, and when I say we, I have friends who participated with their fruit. I grew some of the fruit. Tony grew some of the fruit. We had a couple of other contributors. And the point is, I just believe that our Livermore Valley can grow a lot of things really well. And having been to the Rhone Valley of France several times personally, I've looked around and I've said, this place feels a lot like home. The Livermore Valley, with its temperatures, with its wind, and I just feel like the Livermore Valley could do more with Rhone varieties. And so that's this is our little indication of that, our little raising the flag for the idea of growing more Rhone here. This is in fact made of 2/3 this year. It's different every year. It's always Rhone, but this time around it's about 2/3 Syrah, and then it's got Grenache and Carignan. First Carignan from the Livermore Valley the first time we've had Livermore Valley Carignan in it, because I planted some. Carignan, and then some Mourvedre, or Mourvedre if you want, and finally a little bit of Muscat. And Muscat does in fact grow in the Rhone Valley, so you could call it, even though Muscat's kind of growing here, and here, you could also call it a Rhone grape. So I think it's fair to say this is all Rhone, okay? It co-fermented. I think you winemakers who've made small batches know that the smaller your batch, the more eccentric that wine is going to be. You really do need a certain amount of mass for the fermentation to cooperate. And so instead of separating the Syrah out and fermenting that, and this little amount of Mourvedre, and this slightly larger amount of Grenache, and the Muscat, and instead of fermenting them all separately, we got them all together, and they fermented together, and made this. The results are always a little less predictable when you co-ferment. In other words, blends usually happen right before bottling, where the winemaker goes and blinds himself or herself and goes through bench trials, they call them, of blending, and decides finally what the blend will be. It'll be 13% of that, 14% of that, and they have the luxury of doing that based on keeping everything separate until right before bottling. Well, with co-fermentation, you're stuck with what you've got. Everything is already together, already married. There's a lot of geeky winemakers out there, and I might be one of them, who believe co-fermentation is actually a positive. As long as you have good fruit and you really believe that the location, the place, the region that you're growing in is perfect for those grapes, they all get along, and they get to get along sooner. They get married sooner by being co-fermented. I know I'm going on and on and on, but this is a wine I'm very, very, very pleased with this year. And in fact, I can't stand it anymore. I have to pour myself some to be able to continue with the video. And tragically, I can't find an open bottle. There it is. Here it is. I want to show you how beautiful the color is this time. By the way, I just took this out of our cellar. This is at cellar temperature, and I have found that in this particular year especially, I like to have it a little cooler. So don't pour this at room temperature. You'll know it better, you'll love it better. The fruit will pop with a cooler temp. Not freezing cold, not out of the fridge, but maybe out of your wine fridge that you have set for, let's say, 58 degrees. Can you see the color? It's very nice this year. Again, the Syrah is probably the contributor of that. But wow, what a smell. What a beautiful fusion of Rhone smells comes out of this, including, well, obviously beautiful fruit, but there's something wonderfully dried herb like garrigue happening here. Herbs de Provence is certainly a part of this, especially lavender and thyme, I would say. I can tell you that my vines grow right next to thyme and lavender, and maybe they, with the Livermore Valley wind, like the Mistral wind of France, maybe those qualities blow onto my grapes. Who knows? I think it's intellectual and it's a people pleaser at the same time, and that's really what we wanted to end up with. We wanted people, whether they're casually drinking Domaine de PdV, I don't have to hold the bottle up on me anymore, you get it right here. Whether you are casually drinking Domaine de PdV or thinking about it, especially think about having it at a cool temperature and maybe putting this Pinot Noir glass to use. If you're thinking about it or drinking it casually, both of you should be happy, I hope. 2024 Domaine de PdV, again, Syrah, Grenache, Carignan, Mourvedre, Muscat of all things, co-fermented. What about oak? I know, do you really care? Well, I do. I want for Rhone wines, oak to not really have a say as far as flavor. I don't want to put this blend into a regular sized new oak barrel. Why taste oak when you've got all this beautiful fruit? And the people who make wine in the Rhone Valley think the same way. They generally use, almost always use, an oversized barrel, a barrel that's bigger than the typical 228, 225 liter. And so this, in fact, went into a used barrel, a barrel used several times, but was still clean. I bought it from a reputable barrel broker, and it was oversized. It's called a hog, or a hogshead. It's a 300 liter barrel, and therefore it made about 30, 31 cases of wine instead of the 24, 25 you're gonna get from a standard barrel. More importantly, there's less oxidation because you have more volume of wine, and no wood flavor because the barrel's been used several times. We want the fruit and the place to be emphasized in this Domaine de PdV, which is just our delicious way of saying, hey Livermore, let's grow some more Rhone, shall we? That's it for this video, except to say that this is in fact part of that flight. If I've gone on so long that I haven't said that, or that you have forgotten that I said that. Point is, 31 cases, get yours. I know you're gonna like it. I think it's pretty damn delicious, and it's not just because it's my baby. I'm really hard on my children sometimes, at least my wine children, and I'm very pleased with what happened here. So I hope you will be too. Have it with your next grilled feast, will you? I just can't stop talking about this, can I? But I must. Let's do some other work now. Come on in, see us. We would love to see you human beings in here. Thank you.